Wicked. Brrr. Here we are with Dr. John Demartini. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. It's great to be on your show, so thank you.
It's an honor and a pleasure. It's good to see you again. You'll be on our shores pretty soon, I hear.
I am going to be in Australia. I'm right now in Denver, Colorado, and I will be leaving for Australia this Monday, get there Wednesday morning, and hit the road running. We're ready to go.
There you go. I'd love to see you as well. I'd love to be there.
Yep, I'll be there in Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane, all three of them in the next week.
Nice work. So for the I don't know, one or two people who don't know who you are, could you just give us a brief intro into who you are?
Well, I'm a teacher, I guess, best way to describe it. I'm a researcher, writer, traveler, and teacher. I've been teaching for 45 years. Anything that maximizes human awareness and potential and helps people live more extraordinary and high-achieving lives is what I've been focused on and teaching all these years. I've been blessed to teach. I've been in 140 countries. I've been speaking in many, many countries around the world. I've taught signature programs in about 63 of them. And I just research every day. I'm doing that right now. I'm working on a new book, and I just research and write, and I travel full time, and I teach.
Amazing. How many books have you written?
I don't know. Probably with all the manuscripts, books, texts, probably 300.
That's incredible. And when did you start writing? And I know that writing hasn't always been your forte. I know that much about you.
Well, my first book, I little mini published privately age 23. And then I've been writing ever since. But a lot of them have been big textbooks. I'm working right now on one on cosmology and cosmogony. I'm trying to condense 4,000 pages of documents that I've written down to about a 400 to 500 page document for a textbook. And so that's what I'm in the process of doing right now. The history of cosmology and cosmogony from the ancients all the way to today, the most updated, even controversial information on it.
So cosmogony and cosmology, just what are those two things?
Cosmogony is the theories that are about the origin of the universe, and cosmology is about the study of the structures of the universe primarily. One is on the origin and one's a structure.
Okay.
Just like embryology, you might say, and physiology.
Embryology and physiology?
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what are some of the themes that have been coming up in that realm as you've been delving back into that?
Well, I've been surprised over the last 4+ decades that I've been studying this, how institutional imperatives and subjective bias and paradigms get stuck in human thinking, and people are afraid to step outside the traditionally conventional thinking, and how revolutionary new insights come along and people have daring boldness to step up and challenge the thinking. And the data actually doesn't support all of the standard models sometimes, but it takes a while for enough of that data to eventually overthrow models. And I'm gathering the data, and I'm just going to present something that'll be a little bit challenging to the standard constructs. But there's lots of pitfalls in that. I've accumulated over 100 pitfalls.
So those pitfalls, as in they're negating the whole theories that a lot of people have, or?
I wouldn't say negating it. It's just that it needs refinement for sure.
Okay.
Negating parts of it, but not all of it. There's definitely functional pieces in it, but I think that there's things that can be refined to make it more sensible. And I think that we have many people are trapped in subjective biases without even realizing it. And there's a dialectic going on between pairs of opposite viewpoints that fight. And very seldom it's like in politics, they take a side or another side, but there are very few people that can sit there and transcend it and see neither right or wrong, but see how there's an integration of the pieces. And I'm attempting to do that in this piece.
Yeah, excellent. And is that something that you see often, that people have this, they can only see one or the other as opposed to both and or neither? And
yes, I've been blessed to study 297 different disciplines and write most of these. And I've yet to see any discipline or any ology that we can study that does not have this complementation of pairs of opposites, this dialectic oscillation going on in thinking. But people tend to polarize their view and fight instead of seeing that they both have some merit and they both have something to contribute. And I guess I'm an oddball. I was a left-handed dyslexic that allows me to see laterally from different view, and I guess I can see things that are sometimes polarized.
Mm. And do you have to be that way? Do you have to be a left-handed dyslexic in order to do that, or is there some common?
No, I don't think that's essential, but I think that's just has been probably an asset as much as a liability.
And have you seen many people shift from being unable to then being able, and what have been the mindset shifts or the,
Oh, certainly.
Characteristic shifts?
I've had fun debating theological debates and different field debates. And I just had one last week, actually. We had a young, aspiring thinker and philosopher and theologian that we had some fun in the program, actually. And we debated for probably 30 minutes on a particular topic. And finally, he went to work and he saw a new perspective, I guess. And but he was really staunch about his belief. But he was younger, and I don't think he really didn't comprehend that there may be way more information than what he's come across so far. So we had fun. So I had fun with the guy. I get that quite often. But I think that, ultimately, human beings yearn to do something extraordinary and to rise above the herd and not subordinate to and live in the shadows of people, but be original thinkers that contribute and make a vast difference. We can't make a difference shrinking and subordinating to the world around us. We have to be able to stand up and see and share what's inside. I've said on The Secret, when the voice and the vision on the inside is louder than all opinions on the outside, we begin to master our life and we leave our effect in the world. And so I'm interested in what makes people do that and how they can do that and share that with people and help people do that. So, because inside there's a yearning to want to do something amazing.
Mm. And that's been your work, what you teach.
Well, I've been blessed to be involved in teaching quite a few things, but core is, some people have termed it self-mastery, basically, how to master your life, whatever it is that you want to master. I mean, I've been blessed to work with athletes who want to do extraordinary things with athletics. I've worked with a gentleman who climbed Mount Everest 4 times, the 7 top peaks in the world twice, literally hiked to the North and South Pole and swam the Amazon River. That's pretty adventurous.
The same person?
One person.
And what did you help them with? Like, what did they need help with?
Well, just his mission was to get up every morning and ask, what is my greatest fear today and how do I conquer it? And wanted strategies on transcending fantasies and internal nightmares and setting objective goals with realistic strategies that get things done. And so he wanted refinement on making it more efficient. He wants to do more adventures. He wants to do it even more efficient. Mm. So, there's different reasons. Some people are people that are academics. Some people are celebrities in various fields, music or acting. Some people are business leaders. Some people are raising families. I don't know what I'm going to run into. I just know that each individual has a core essence that they want to express, a highest value, the thing that's most inspiring and meaningful to them. They want to be able to orchestrate and architecturally design their life around and relinquish through delegation lower priority things so they can fill their day with things that are truly meaningful. And I help people do that. I'm interested in getting clear on what it is that they're going after, making sure it's concise in a plan, and help them achieve that. That's one of my blessings that I get to contribute.
Yeah, awesome. And do you, again, is there a different kind of thinking in terms of going from a place of, filling your life with low priority, unimportant tasks versus filling your life with things that are high priority and important? You know, is there a different kind of thinking that comes along with that, or is it just a shifting of perspective, or is it shifting of priorities? Like, how do we actually do that?
Well, each individual lives by a set of priorities, a set of values that are unique to them, like a fingerprint. And whatever's highest on their value is an intrinsic value that has a calling that wants to express itself spontaneously. Nobody has to remind you, motivate you, incentivize you to do what's truly most important to you. This is where you access your genius, creativity, and your greatest potential. But as you go down the list of values, lower values, they become gradually, progressively more extrinsic, and they require more and more outside extrinsic motivations to get you to do them. This is where you do not excel. This is where you decel. So every time you're filling your day with the highest priority things and orchestrating and structuring your life and taking command of your calendar, you might say, you're increasing the probability of greatness and leadership and genius and achievement and innovation and leadership. And anytime you're doing something that's low on your values, you're doing the opposite. You're basically becoming a follower. And if we live in the shadows of others and inject the values of others into our life and cloud and shroud the clarity of what's really most important to us, we'll play in the shadows of other people all our life. But if we give ourselves permission to stand up out on the diving board and take a deep jump off the quantum diving board and go after what we really would love to do and structure our life wisely and fill our day with high priority actions, it doesn't fill up with low priority distractions. And we pursue challenges that inspire us, that make a difference in the world, instead of trying to shrink from challenges that we're trying to escape from, and then attracting challenges that distract us from doing something meaningful. So it's prioritizing our life is one of the keys. When you stick to the one thing, you become the one leader. Stick to the one thing that you become greatest at.
Yeah, and is there, I guess, strategies, or is it a mindset shift? Like, what's the most kind of efficient and effective way that you found that people have found in order to be able to apply this theory and this principle that you've just talked about?
Well, we have control, or you might say control over our perceptions, decisions, and actions. So mastering perceptions, mastering decision-making processes, and mastering prioritized actions makes a huge difference. It's a new trajectory if a person does it. So the first thing is to do is identify what's truly valuable and the hierarchy of values of an individual. And on my website, as you know, there's a complimentary 30-minute 13 questionnaire to assist people in that. And I encourage people to do that because it's just going to help them. And they've nothing to lose. It's private. They can do it. They can compare. They can watch it 3 months later. Every quarter, they can see the evolution of it. But first do that. And then you want to ask, what is the highest priority action step I can do today that can help me fulfill the greatest potential and achieve what's most meaningful to me, most inspiring to me, most fulfilling to me and to the world, serves the world the most? And if you ask that question, as Bill Gates, he does a beautiful job asking this question. He asks, what is the greatest, most highest, most important, and highest priority action I can do today to help me fulfill the greatest difference in the world with the resources I have? That's Bill Gates. That's what he asked himself. So if you ask that, because the quality of your life is based on the quality of the question, Jess, if you ask that question and get it down to the highest priority and keep doing that and complete that down into small incremental changes on a daily basis and complete them, and you do that every single day, it's impossible to not make incremental momentum building actions that lead you to great outcomes.
So is it physically grabbing a pen, writing it down on paper and looking at it? Like, because I often have in the past, myself, I'm guilty of this. This is a reality. I write a list. I won't look at it till the end of the day. Nothing got done. You know, it's actually, I find looking at what I've written down is one of the key pieces, actually seeing it in front of my face.
Well, it's like, when you brush your teeth, when you're a little boy, your mom has to remind you. And then when the girl tries to kiss you, from there on out, you do it yourself. And, same thing with flossing your teeth. Somebody has to remind you. And then after a while, it becomes a habit because your teeth are falling out or gums are receding. So when you have enough reason for doing it, you'll do it. When the why is big enough, the house take care of themselves. Once you realize how important prioritization is, you'll do it. Because you realize you have more self-worth, you get more accomplished, you make more income, you serve more people, you have more leadership. I mean, all the things that we want to empower in our life start emerging. So it's just to our advantage to take command of that. But most people have never been taught that. They're surrounding themselves with people that are not inspired. And so they just go through life and they let the world dictate. In psychology, there's two camps of thinking. One's a zeitgeist approach that society rules you and determines your destiny. And the other is that individuals determine their destiny. And it's not what the world says, it's how they perceive, decide, and act. I'm one of those that believe that that's more important. Not that the outer environment doesn't have an effect, but I've certainly worked with people in the breakthrough experience over and over again for decades now, that it really, no matter what they've been through, they can turn it into an opportunity and do something amazing with it. Doesn't matter. I mean, I've seen amazing starting points for people, challenges. Sometimes those are the catalysts to do the greatest outcomes.
Can you tell us a few that stand out to you now? I know there's got to be thousands of them, but are there some?
Well, I'll tell a story I've shared before in live seminars, and I'll use it about a boy that I was speaking in Cape Town, South Africa, 7 or so years ago. And it may be going on 8 now, but 7, something like that. I was speaking to 800 people at the Westin or Sheraton Arabella Hotel. I think it's the Westin now, it was the Sheraton at the time. And there was 800 people in the room, and I was talking about personal wealth building and about self-worth and about structuring your economics and not living in fantasies, and the 9 steps that if a person doesn't do these steps, financial independence isn't going to happen. And I was discussing this, and at the end of the program, I signed books and I gave people hugs and took pictures and the classical thing you do as a speaker. And way in the back of the room was a little boy, a young, well, teenager that was there that I didn't get to meet, but he was there. I came back to South Africa and to Cape Town December. I was in there in September, but I came back 3 months later in December, and I did the same thing, about 800 people. Same place, same location. But this time at the end of my presentation, this young man, 14-year-old, came forward, waited till everybody gave hugs and pictures and stuff. He was the last person. He came up to me and he says, "Dr. Demartini, you inspired me." And I said, "Fantastic. How so?" He said, "Well, I was here at your speech back last September, and you inspired me to change my life financially. And I've done some amazing changes, and I just want to thank you." And I said, "What kind of changes?" He said, "Well, I've saved $7.50 in your US dollars." It was in rands, the South African rands, but $7.50. And I said, "Fantastic, congratulations." He says, "Dr. Demartini, I'm on my way to my dreams financially." I said, "Tell me about them." He said, "Well, my mother and father have died of AIDS. I don't have a mother and father. I'm the oldest in the family. I have 9 brothers and sisters. I live in a shack in a township called Khayelitsha. We don't have any running water. We don't have any flooring. We don't have electricity. And we have plastic covering up the top because when it does rain, it gets leaky." He said, and I work. I have to go and work at a mud brick manufacturing company. And I make mud bricks and stack them." And I said, "Wow." He says, "I make 60 cents a day. I walk 45 minutes to work every day and 45 minutes back. But I'm now saving, since I met you, 15 cents a day, and I've saved $7.50. And I'm about teary-eyed because this guy's inspiring me. I'm supposed to inspire him. He's inspiring me. I go, "This is amazing."
Yeah.
He said, "I have a dream." I said, "What's your dream?" He says, "It's almost Christmas. We're 2 weeks before Christmas. 1 year from now, I'm going to put $20 down. I will have saved over $30. I'm going to put $20 down on a new house for my family, brothers and sisters. It's a $200 house. It's going to have a roof that doesn't leak, that's metal. It's going to have a floor. It's going to have a light bulb with electricity. It's going to be closer to where you can pump water. And everybody's going to stay dry. And I'm going to buy that house for my family." And I have envisioned that there's thousands of kids like me in the township, and I want to serve 1,000 of them and inspire them with what they can do with their lives. And I'm like going, whoa.
Incredible.
Well, 1 year later, I saw his house. So those are the kind of stories that make me realize it's not what you've been through. It's not what you're going through It's not what you've experienced. It's what you've decided to perceive, decide, and do from it. And William James said,
perceive, decide, and do.
yeah. And William James said, who's the father of modern psychology, about 120 years ago, he said, the greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their perceptions and attitudes of mind.
Mm.
Now, I've shared his story around the world because he inspired me.
Mm.
So this man, this young man now, who's obviously in his early 20s, is making a difference in the world, and I'm one of his ambassadors, you might say.
Yeah, beautiful. And
Yeah.
how has he inspired you specifically? Did you
Well, I just love to hear people, inspiration. When I studied what inspiration is a feedback mechanism to the conscious mind. When we see somebody's life that inspires us, it is reminding us what we're capable of doing.
Mm.
And it is a byproduct of somebody who pursued a challenge, conquered it, and never gave up pursuing it and using it to their greatest advantage.
Mm.
And anybody who does that inspires us.
Mm.
There was a movie that came out many years ago called October Sky. And there's this little boy in this small town, mining town, that looked up into the sky one night when he was a young boy. And he saw glimmering in the sky Sputnik crossing the sky. People looked up and saw it because it was announced that it was going to be going across the sky. And he saw it. And this is back probably in the 50s or something, early 60s maybe. And he saw it and he got so inspired. He said, I want to go to space. I want to shoot rockets to space. So here's a little boy that had a dream. Came from a mining town, came from a poor family, didn't have any money. His father said that everybody here in this town becomes a miner. That's just your destiny, boy. You're a miner.
Mm.
And so as he's going through school, his father just said, you don't need school, just become a miner. But he had a dream to go and become a rocket scientist. And one of his teachers believed in him. Nobody else really believed in him. They thought he was crazy. So he started building little rockets, model rockets, pictures of rockets, go to the library and read about it, looking about fuel. He just slowly but surely just kept working on how to build rockets. And he started practicing, and some would blow up and some of them would caught on fire and they would do everything else. And one time he shot a rocket and off and it went sideways and went towards the mine and caused a problem. And they shut him down and said, no rockets. But the teacher believed in him and secretly supported him. And he ended up doing a rocket science contest and he won.
Mm.
And then he went on to study rocket science. He kept building bigger and greater rockets. And one day his father finally realized he was serious. He's not going to stop until rockets are going into space. And his father helped him launch one of those rockets. And he was one of the people that launched some of the rockets to go into space today.
Wow.
He never gave up on it. It's a true story. It's an inspiring story because he pursued inspiring ideas and he never gave up on it. And anytime a person does that, they inspire because they exemplify what's possible for human beings.
Mm.
That's what I wanted to do with my life.
Mm. And have you had moments where you've wanted to give up, and how have you overcome those, if you have?
I can't say, yeah, I had a moment when I was 18 years old where I was learning disabled as a child. I had speech problems, learning problems, reading problems, everything else. I was told in first grade I would never be able to read, write, or communicate, never amount to thing, never go very far in life. So I didn't read really till I was 18. I dropped out of school, was a street kid. But at age 18, when I decided after being inspired by a gentleman who's done extraordinary things, I decided that I wanted to become a teacher and travel the world like I'm doing. Mm. And I wasn't going to let anybody stop me from it. I took a GED, a high school equivalency test, and I went back and somehow guessed and passed. I took a college entrance exam. I guessed and I passed. I don't know how. I just guessed. I just filled in little dots and it just somehow passed. And I tried to take a college class and I failed. I bombed it. I needed 72 and I got a 27. And I was driving home from the school and I had to pull off on the side of the road 3 times because I was crying so much. And then I got home and I curled up in a fetal position under this Bible stand that my mom had in the living room. And I was just having a real ill moment. I just said, I guess I'll never be able to read or write or communicate. And this whole thing's a fantasy about learning and teaching. And my mom came home and she said, son, what happened? What's wrong? I said, Mom, I got a 27. I bombed the test. I guess I'll never learn how to read and write, communicate. I guess I'll never amount to anything. And she didn't know what to say. And she looked at me and finally she's put her hand on my shoulder and she said, son, whether you become a great teacher, healer, and philosopher and travel the world like you dream, whether you go back and ride giant waves like you've done in Hawaii, because I was a big wave rider when I was a teenager, or you return to the streets and panhandle as a bum like I did. He says, she said, I just want to let you know that your father and I are going to love you no matter what. And when she said that, my hand went into a fist. I looked up and I saw a vision of me speaking in front of 1 million people. And I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called study and learning and reading and teaching and philosophy. And I'm going to do whatever it takes and travel whatever distance and pay whatever price to give myself some love. I'm not going to let any human being on the face of the earth stop me from that, not even myself. And I got up and I went into my room and I locked myself in a door. I got a dictionary out and I started memorizing a dictionary and started reading encyclopedias. With every new word I would read it, I would just study it. And I started to grow my vocabulary until I was able to pass school and start to excel. And I haven't stopped since. I read and write every day and I travel most every day and teach every day since.
Beautiful. And for the, I guess it's that decision, like you made a decision and that's like the power of a decision when you do make a decision. Is there, I guess that came from within you. You had this vision, you had this strong vision. I see some people, they have a vision, but it might be strong for some time and there might be ups and downs. They're living it for like a month or 2 months or a couple of years or a few years, and then they lose the vision or they lose belief in themselves, or life happens and something happens to steer them off course. You know, how do you maintain such a vivid, clear vision and being driven by that kind of vision and that purpose?
Well, again, each individual has a hierarchy of values, a set of values. Whenever they set a goal that is aligned with the highest value, they see it. The blood glucose and oxygen goes into the executive center of the brain, where you see inspired vision, you see a strategy, you want to execute the strategy, and you have self-governance. You have discipline automatically. It's not because you're now willpowered, it's just spontaneous. So many people set goals that aren't the highest, but second or third down the list of values, and then they have a shorter time horizon. And then they go off and they keep being called back to what's really important. So I'm a firm believer is accessing as high as possible, if not the highest, that's the goal. Because then you don't need to be reminded, you don't need to motivate. If you need motivation from the outside, you haven't found it. I haven't needed motivation. I can tell you, if you can find somebody that's had to motivate me to research, write, travel, and teach in the last 45 years, you got a free seminar. You won't find it.
Yeah.
It's just what I am. That's what I love doing.
And how important is it to be specific? I guess I've witnessed a lot of people, you know, I've forwarded a lot of people onto the Demartini's values determination process, and they might have a value of openness or something that I can't quite put my hands on. It's like, you know, yours is teaching, writing, communicating, traveling. It's like very specific. How important is it to be as specific as that? Can people have this kind of ephemeral, kind of vague idea?
No, I've never met a person that had an ephemeral highest priority. I just have people that are subordinating to other people, injecting the values of others into their lives, setting up a fantasy that's not really theirs, and then not awakening the executive center, and therefore have no strategy to ground it. And these are not their highest value. They fantasize about it. They're fantasies, and they create manic fantasies temporarily, and then crashes because nothing ever happens. I'm not interested in that. When I work with people and I do the breakthrough experience, my goal, depending on the number of people there, is to make sure they get access to what is more important to them. Because when they get what's really most important to them, they don't need motivation anymore. The people I know who have accessed it, they don't need motivation. They're inspired. It's intrinsic. I want people to access their intrinsic value. That's where the power is. Then you don't have to be, I need a motivational boost. I don't think like that. You would have to do that. My lowest value is cooking and driving. You'd have to motivate me to cook and drive, but I have no intention. I learned a long time ago, you can't live an inspired life unless you delegate the low priority crap. If you're sitting there doing low priority stuff, you're devaluing yourself and draining yourself. that you're doing what's most important. You're energized and you're inspired. And I don't have any desire to. I haven't driven a car in 27 and a half years, almost 28 years, and I haven't cooked since I was 24. I just don't do that. I delegate it. I don't do something that's not going to inspire me. It's silly to spend your day that way.
And delegation looks like what? Just hiring someone, asking someone to do it. Like, how did you begin the delegation process?
Well, it could be insourced. It could be insourced or outsourced on who does it. Some things are done because of a monetary exchange. Some are other forms of exchange. But yeah, it forces you by prioritizing your life and living by your highest priority and learning the art of delegating. It forces you to contribute your gifts that you can bring to the world, your services to the world in a way that's fair exchange, so you earn a great living and get rewarded financially. I mean, there's no reason why you can't do what you love and love what you do and get handsomely paid doing it, become financially independent, doing something that's meaningful to you. I'm absolutely certain about it. I've taken thousands of people and shown them how to do that. So if you're doing something you love to do that makes a difference in the world and gets paid handsomely, you can afford to delegate all that stuff and get on with doing what you love. Otherwise, you're going to bog yourself down and beat yourself up. Why do that?
Beating yourself up. I've never seen that get anybody anywhere. I've spent quite a bit of time doing it myself, and yeah, it's never the right option.
Well, the only time you beat yourself up is when you're setting up a proudful. See, there's the amygdala, which is an animal part of the inner brain, tends to want to avoid predator and seek prey, avoid pain, seek pleasure, avoid shame, and seek pride. So when you're not living by your highest values, which activates the telencephalon, the forebrain, the executive center, where you've got inspired vision, and you're living by other people's values and your lower values, the amygdala comes online and you want pride and you want ease and you want fantasies and you want consumerism and immediate gratification and impulse. That's not where the power is, because that's the animal brain, and animals don't become super achievers. Humans do. And so it's so crucial to prioritize, to transcend the animal behavior, or otherwise you're going to set up a fantasy of a pleasure without a pain and then experience a nightmare as a feedback to let you know you're searching for a fantasy. Your phobias are a result of your philias. Your nightmares are a result of your fantasies. Your self-depreciation is a result of your prides. They're trying to neutralize you and get you back to where your real priorities are and what's really most important to you, where you set objective, balanced goals.
And is that the cause of, the ABCDs of negativity, as you call? Like, can you just go into a bit about that? Because I think it's a beautiful.
Well, anytime you expect yourself to live outside your highest values, or expect people around you to live outside their highest values, you're going to have anger and aggression, which is A, blame and betrayal, feelings of betrayal, B, criticism and challenge, C, despair and depression, D, E is a desire to escape and exit, F is frustration and fatigue and futility, G is basic grouchiness and grief, and H is basically hatred and hurt. You're going to sit down with the ABCDFGHs of negativity to let you know you're setting an unrealistic expectation on yourself or other people.
And what's happening in that instance? So, and how can we use that feedback?
Well, most people who have been indoctrinated foolishly into positive thinking, that think they're going to have one side and not the other. As the Buddha says, the desire for that which is unavailable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is a source of human suffering. So people setting up a one-sided illusion for their life are bound to have those depressions, because life's not going to match that fantasy. If I go up to somebody and I say, you're always nice, you're never mean, you're always kind, you're never cruel, you're always positive, you're never negative, you're always sweet, you're never bitter, you're always generous, you're never stingy, you're always peaceful, you're never wrathful, would you believe me? They would say, not really.
Yeah.
I said, well, you're always mean, you're never nice, you're always cruel, you're never kind, you're always stingy, you're never generous, you're always taking, you're never giving, you're always negative, you're never positive, you're always wrathful, never peaceful. Would you believe me? No, that's not it either. I said, sometimes you're nice, sometimes you're mean, sometimes you're kind, sometimes you're cruel, sometimes you're generous, sometimes you're stingy, sometimes you're peaceful, sometimes you're wrathful. They immediately go, yeah, that's true. They have a built-in thermostat for the center, and they have a fantasy of one side. And anytime you set a one-sided goal for yourself or other people, you've got a self-defeated ABCDFGHs and negativity coming in to let you know that you've got a fantasy you've set up, an unrealistic expectation. And it's there as a friend, not as an enemy. But the positive thinking makes you want to go, oh, cancel that, get rid of that, avoid that, and there's something wrong with me. Why do I have that? Because you keep setting up fantasies and your brain is doing its normal job. That's not something to get rid of. It's something to understand and use to guide you to set real objective goals.
Use it as exactly that, a feedback.
Feedback.
Yeah. And I have a lot of healers, coaches, people in this area of spiritual development, personal development. And what would you say is some of the keys in being somebody who is inspirational and who's legitimately doing work that is going to uplift and actually achieve what the outcome is? Because a lot of people might be like, oh, this person isn't matching, their life doesn't match what they're talking about, or like how can people be better coaches and be better facilitators and this type of thing?
Well, most people live their life instead of walk their talk, because they're basically living not according to their highest value. They're attempting to live in other people's values. They're envying people. And as long as you envy, Ralph Waldo Emerson said, envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. And Albert Einstein said, my contempt for authorities was what made me one. He challenged authorities instead of subordinated to authorities. So as long as we're doing that, we're going to have some degree of incongruency. And the incongruency is automatically designed to rattle some of the followers of the people that are in the coaching business, to hold them accountable, because they'll keep losing clients that'll eventually discover that they're not clear and not congruent, and eventually get them to be disciplined in a sense, or authentic in themselves. So all those symptoms are actually mechanisms on the growth process of that coach to help them master their life. And I don't believe that the coach is necessarily unethically attempting to be that way. They're just learning the journey, and they're starting on their journey. And as they master it, they become more integral, more exemplary, and people then follow them because they all want to live that exemplary life, not as a subordinate, but as an inspiration. I don't want people to subordinate to me. I want them to be inspired by my exemplification.
Yeah, excellent. And that's a surefire way to, well, it's not necessarily surefire, because some people might not resonate, might not be ready to be inspired, but it's gives you more of an opportunity to have that outcome that you're looking for.
Well, if you help other people get what they want, you help yourself get what you want. That's Zig Ziglar taught me that when I was 20, and I think there's some wisdom in that. And if you're thinking, well, those coaches are doing good over there, I think I'll be a coach. You probably aren't going to endure what it takes to be a coach. If you're not willing to endure pain and pleasure in the pursuit of your purpose, it's not your purpose.
Yeah, and that's for me. I love it. Like I spent years making music, being on stage with the microphone, rapping, singing, and doing all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, I like it, but rehearsal, nah, I haven't got time for that. Or marketing for this, nah. But you get me a group of people or one-on-one, and I'll do that stuff for 12, 15, 16, 17 hours a day happily.
Yeah. So. Well, I delegate anything. Many people in the pursuit of their business will run into snags in their business because they're ending up doing the portions of the business that aren't inspiring. And then they'll think, well, maybe it's not meant to be. Instead of hiring the people to do those parts as experts and getting on with doing the portion that is inspiring. And I learned a long time ago that I love researching, writing, and traveling and teaching. I do them spontaneously. Nobody has to remind me to do it. I'm the kind of guy who will fly into a city the night before a big gig, and I'll be looking around the hotel just in case there's another gig I can speak at.
Love it. You mentioned the 9 steps to wealth. Can you quickly just reel those off quickly? I imagine that people listening have got 9 steps. I wonder if he's going to talk about that.
Well, what this is not so much the 9 steps, but they're 9 essential basics that if you aren't aware of these factors, you're telling the world, I really don't want financial independence. Because if these aren't in your head, at the tip of your head, then I can guarantee you financial independence is not in your priority list. And that is first identifying your total assets, financial assets. If you don't know what your total financial assets are, you don't know where you are. If you don't know where you are and you don't know where you're going and you don't know how to get there, it's not going to happen.
So this is knowing your worth.
No, first knowing what your total assets are.
Yeah. Number
2 is knowing your total liabilities, if there are any. Most people have it, but not all. I don't have any liabilities per se, but because I'm independently wealthy, but people may have liabilities. Now, number 3 is the combination of assets minus liabilities to give you net worth. And that tells you where you are right now, your current status. And when I ask people, how many want to be financially independent, everybody puts their hand up. And I ask how many are, they all put their hands down just about, unless I'm speaking to a group of executives. And even them, be surprised. Even executives running companies are not always financially independent. They sometimes live beyond their means, and they don't have savings and investments and structures in place. So the number 3 is knowing your net worth. Number 4 is knowing exactly what net worth you would like, well, what the amount you want to spend every year, annual expenditure, annual income for the year that you want to live on. So let's just say I want to live on $100,000 a year, or $250,000 a year, or $500,000, or $1 million, or $10 million. I don't know.
This is a personal wage that you'd like to.
This is the personal passive investment income you want to have.
Yeah.
Passive.
So this is lifestyle.
Not active.
This is lifestyle.
This is before taxes, the amount of income you want that you're going to live your life on.
Okay.
So let's just make up that it's 100,000 because that's a 1 and a 0. Now the next question, that's number 4. Number 5 is, what is the average interest rate you believe, with your skill and knowledge of investing, you believe you can get conservatively with all your investments totaled? Annually interest rate. Okay, I'm just going to pick on the conservative number, 6%. Okay. Then the next one is, what is the inflation rate over at least a 25-year minimum, but at least 100 years ideally? A 100-year average worldwide is about 5%. So then you know what the inflation is, because that's going to be a factor in determining your financial independence. The next one is, how much money do I need as a total net worth in passive investment income to earn me the amount I want to earn every year, or have every year, passively, earning that 6% interest with that 5% inflation? How much is that? That's not a nebulous fantasy number. It's an exact number. If you have an exact goal with an exact number, your brain does better than if you go, I kind of want to be financially independent. I don't know what it means, but I want to be there. That's where most people live, fantasy land. So then you need to know what that is. So let's just say you want to live on $100,000 a year, and you want to earn 6% on your passive investment conservatively. That means you need 1.6666 million earning 6% to give you $100,000 a year. Because you take 6% and divide it up into 100%, it's 16.666. But you need 5% inflation on top of that to cover that. So 5% of 16.666 is about 53,000. Put that on there. Let's just say it comes out to be 1.73 million. Now, once you have 1.73 million today, right this minute, if you had 1.73 million, the passive interest that you earned on that could give you a $100,000 lifestyle for the rest of your life. If you never raised your lifestyle, you're set making equivalent of $100,000 a year. You got to, of course, pay some taxes on it, capital gains, but that's it. And if you have that, you go, okay, I'm financially independent. But most people have a shortfall between their current net worth and the ideal net worth that they need. And that shortfall, if there is a shortfall, there has to be a strategy on how to fill that gap. And there has to be a time frame factoring in inflation to cover that. So let's just say, okay, right now I need 1.73 million. I think I can work towards financial independence over the next 15 years. Well, 5% into 2 is about 15 years, roughly 14 and a half years. So in 15 years, if I'm 40 now, at age 55, what do I need to have in passive investment to earn me earning 6% against inflation to do it? And it turns out to be about $3.4 million, $3.46 million. Okay, $3.46 million, that's what I need to target over the next 15 years. I need to have that saved and invested, earning me 6% to give me $200,000 lifestyle then, because inflation is going to double the cost of living. Okay, well then I calculated how much do I need to save every single month as a straight line without interest? Well, that comes out about $20,000 a month. And people go, what? Hey, well, wait a minute, I'm only saving $200 a month. How am I going to get there? Oh, crap. So now they either go and commit suicide, or they realize I'm just going to go buy some drink and drink some alcohol, which is where most people live, in kind of the escape mode, because they don't want to actually face the realities. They'd rather live in the dopamine highs and the serotonin highs of the fantasy out there, the lifestyles rich and famous. That's why most people live in vicariously through other people's brands, buy consumer items, and watch TV and heroes on TV all the time, and go to spectator sports and stuff instead of being in it, in the sport.
That's for the dopamine.
Yeah, that's the fix to compensate for the unfulfillment and the frustration. So then what happens if all of a sudden you say, okay, how do I get $20,000 a month then? Well, that means I need a strategy. Number one, I need to do a forced accelerated savings technique, what I call FAST, which I'm going to now save. I'm saving X, let's say $200 a month. In 3 months, it's going to be a 300. In 3 months, it's going to be 500. 3 months, it's going to be 750. 3 months, it's going to be 1,000. And every 3 months after that, I'm going to raise it 10%. And if I raise it 10%, the amount I save doubles every 2 years. That's a Pascal triangle. And then 2 years, I'm at 2,000. 4 years, I'm at 4,000. 6 years, I'm at 8,000. Then 16. Then 32. Then 64. And it goes up. I followed this strategy for 34 years now. And the amount I started saving was way below what I needed. But at the end, and now it's way beyond what I needed. And I reached financial independence that way because I followed a strategy and I consistently dedicated my life to serving more people more efficiently. And there's no reason why you're going to get financially independent if you're not serving people. It's kind of delusional. So I found if you do that, you can actually obtain this thing, but you need to have those 9 things in place.
Yeah, beautiful. And do you find that I often come on people who want the same, they want a big goal, which is, you know, they want to make an impact and make a difference in the world and be contributing, and they want to be contributive in the world, but there's this blocks around being seen or being visible, putting themselves in the public, or they want to just play behind the, not be seen essentially. And I find a disconnect in that. It's like, how can, you know, one be effective in those ways, but still kind of be invisible at the same time? Is it possible? And
well, it depends on many people. It depends on the type of thing you want to accomplish. If you're trying to build a business and you want to build a business and you inspire teams to go in through delegation to do everything, you can be a vastly fortunate and powerful individual with teams building companies. I mean, Richard Branson doesn't go out every single day and run his own companies. He has people running his companies. But he's out there marketing, and he's known because of that. But you could run a major company. I know a gentleman that ran Pantone colors, all the paint colors. And I used to sometimes have dinner with him and Herbert Runick. And this guy, you didn't see him out in the public that much. He's behind the scenes, but he's running a major corporation, huge corporation. And he was a very wealthy man. The same thing for the guy that Ron Perlman that did Revlon Corporation. He was a little bit more out there, but this guy was a friend of his, and it was behind the scenes. Well, so you could do that and achieve amazing things kind of behind the scenes and let everybody else get all the credit. But you're really getting the rewards, and eventually people find out about you. Who is this guy? You know, and then you have others that require the icon out there. You know, Bill Gates is out there with Microsoft, and Buffett's out there with Berkshire Hathaway. And, Steve Jobs is out there with Apple. And those individuals, they're only going to grow as far as they can handle the challenge and the ridicule and the criticism. You're going to get criticism and praise, challenge and support, difficulties and ease, no matter what you do in life. But you're only going to grow to the level of the difficulties you can embrace. So if you're wanting ease without difficulty, you're wanting pleasure without pain, just like we started back earlier, the fantasy, you're only going to grow, and the second the challenge is in, that you're going to give up because it's not the fantasy you want. You got to be able to embrace support and challenge in the pursuit of a great cause, and know that the challenges that come with the territory. If you do that, then you're going to go places. And the person that's not willing to do that is either got to delegate that to somebody or going to have to do it live. I prefer to do it live. I'd rather toughen my skin and get out there and do it. And I always find that whenever somebody's challenging me, there's somebody supporting me. And the more they challenge me, the more they support me. So I don't really, neither one of them makes any difference.
Is that something you would recommend, I guess, doing incrementally, or is it something you would just be like, all right, this thing is the thing that scares me the most, or this challenge is the one that I'm just scared of, I'm not going to deal with that, and just really putting yourself right out there and, like, swimming in deep water? Or would you recommend this?
Well, most people will do it in steps. I would usually tell people to do it in increments and earn the right to risk. It's just like you don't take, let's say you've saved $100,000 and you say, I'm not going to put it all in one IPO. That's pretty foolish. It's better to diversify it a little bit and test some of the speculations and make sure you have a stable investment underneath it. But most people aren't going to just step out there and do something outrageous unless they have a really good strategy. And if so, they prepared it for it. The way you know you're ready for the next level of risk is you've mitigated the risk with your strategy. If you know what the strategy is and what to handle the risk, you're ready for it. That's the whole purpose of executive planning, is to think out all the possible things that can interfere with your goal and plan it out And that's a real goal. If you don't really have a plan of how to handle the obstacles, when the obstacles hit, they hit you left field and you back off with the amygdala response. But if you plan it out and you're prepared for it and you're going, oh, I know what that is. And this is I'm going to share a story that probably whoever's listening, some will like it, some will not, because it relates to Donald Trump. I used to live underneath Donald. I lived in the Trump Tower. We were literally a few floors underneath him. I lived on the 62nd floor and he was a few floors above. And we'd ride down the elevator sometimes, and I knew his family, he knew my wife, and I knew Ivana, and I knew all his wives, and we did some talks together. And one thing, we were coming down the elevator one time, and because he came right down at the same time, and we came into the lobby of Trump Tower, and there's a swivel door there coming out onto 53rd Street, right near the corner of 5th. And we're coming out, and he had about a dozen followers there. And we come through the door, and I'm hearing them talk as we're getting ready to go through the door and out on the street. And we walked across the street together, et cetera. And I heard the whole conversation. And what it was is he had 12 people. He's building the Hudson River Project, which is a series of major buildings on the Hudson River that was an old beat-up area that he rebuilt. Mm. And he had 12 people there, and each one of them was a different specialist. And they were responsible to find out every single thing that could go wrong with the Hudson River Project, and have 10 or 12 or 15 contingency plans for each one. So he said, I want to know, you're a geologist. We're going to dig in the ground. We're going to go down 10 to 15 stories. I need to know what's down there. Are there Indian burial grounds? Is there pipes? Is there rock? I want to know what's down there. I want to know every possible thing in there that could interfere and stall this project, cost us millions. Your job is to find it, and everything that we see that's going to interfere with this project, I want you to have a plan of action of how we're going to handle it in advance. Mm-hmm. And not just one, 10 of those responses, 10 different actions on every obstacle. And that's his team of people who are not optimists, but are specifically looking for every possible problem that can go wrong and how to solve them in advance. That's how you plan big goals.
Mm. And in that is, I know a lot of, they have like this, it's that us and against them, like the Trump supporter and it's like this kind of ideas. I don't know about what's happening there in America, but a lot of people are kind of hopeful. They're like, well, this is what we need for everyone to get enough motivation and enthusiasm and inspiration to actually get up and do something to change or make the changes they wish to make. Whereas, it's kind of this divisive, but it's also on the ground. I asked this question in one of my other podcasts about the environment, the political environment in America at the moment. And that one of the feedbacks I received was it's sort of people are actually getting up and grassroots movements are happening because they're like this fed up of some of the stuff that's happening. I don't know what your perspective on all of this kind of environment is or what you've been noticing.
Well, I can't say that I'm in America every week. I'm traveling out of America more than I'm in it today. So I can't say I keep up with everything each day, and I don't. I fill my day with the highest priority actions that can help me fulfill my mission, more so than sit there and have time to worry about other people's games. Yeah. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'd rather find out what I've targeted to go and solve and go focus on it. Now, I see complete polar opposites in America right now because Donald's stirring up things left and right. But there's a professor at one of the universities in America that's keeping a record of what he actually is accomplishing. And you might find that online. And surprisingly, you might blow your mind at what is actually being done. And the media, he loves stirring up the media. That's his specialty.
Yeah.
So he specifically will tweet and do things just to create sensational reactions to get the media to play his game. So he's the most popular, most known man on earth. They think that they're doing something against him. He's playing a game with them, and they don't see it. But what he does is he stirs up stuff to get movement and to get change. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything he does. Probably don't. Most people don't. But the idea that he had the balls to stand up and go for it, you got to give the guy credit for it. Now, what he accomplishes will be the result at the end of this time. At the end of 4 years, let's take a look at what actually occurred. Now, the stock market, the day he got elected, or not inaugurated, but elected, November 8th, have you looked at the stock market since then? It was about 17, the Dow was 17,800, 700. It's now 26,320. So the stock market has had the biggest bull run probably we've ever had. And it's still going for a run for a while. It's going into a bubble. It will eventually crash. You'll have to deal with that. But right now, that's happening. The dollar has dropped, which helps external trade, exports. There's a lot of things that are going on. Could be just happen to be that because he's in there, or it's coincidence. It's not. I don't think so. He also is actually continually focusing on doing and trying to do the things that he said he was going to do. And there's resistance all over the place, but he doesn't. He wrote his agenda down. He's working on his agenda. He doesn't care if he gets opposition. I know that's how he functions. He doesn't let opposition stop him from getting his goals. So he'll just figure out how to go to the next thing and keep pissing him off and keep doing it to get the goals he set out, because he's got an agenda that he thinks, whether it's true or not, he thinks it's going to make a difference. So I think that there's things to be learned from him and also things to be frustrated by him, as most people. I don't know of anybody that you're married to that you're not going to like and dislike parts of. And if I was running for president, I'm sure they'd be just as crazy as they'd be thinking all kind of things about me too. So, but the idea that he's out there doing it.
Opposition that you're talking about also.
Oh, I'd have oppositions. I've been attacked. That's part of the game. But you know what? It's not how you do when you're supported. It's how you do when you're attacked that determines what your mission is.
And you can look into that. You can look into your own response and then navigate.
Yeah, I didn't really think that Donald was going to make it in there. Actually, I thought that Hillary was going to do it. I knew I used to live across the hallway from Hillary too, because she lived in the same building for a while. She lived in Kenny Rogers' place, and right across the hall. So we used to have to deal with Secret Service people all the time. And that lady is very hard working. Now Donald is up. He sleeps about a little over 4 hours a day, and he is full on all day. And Hillary is the same thing. She sleeps 5 hours maybe, and she's full on, because she would never come home until after midnight, and she'd be out there before 6 again. Full on lady. These two people were very dedicated people trying to serve, and I'm sure they do things that somebody's going to call corrupt, bad, and wrong and everything, but I don't know any human being that makes it to the top that's going to have something that's not going to be labeled that. But, I thought she was going to win because of the family and because Bill would be back in there, and it would be something. I just assumed that. It was a surpriser to get Donald to finally get in there, but I think people wanted some sort of change.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, as you were talking there, I just was thinking about, is it possible to just observe somebody and figure out what their highest values are? And how would you utilize, knowing what somebody's highest values are in your own, for your own purposes, I guess, like and of ease and harmony and flow of interaction and creating what is highest priority and highest value to yourself? Well,
it's very simple. You could do the value determination process, which is complimentary on my website. I have those 13 questions at the tip of my tongue. How does a person fill their space? How they spend their time most? What energizes them? Where does their money go? Where do they spend their money on? Where are they most organized? Where are they most disciplined? What do they think about, visualize, and affirm about that's coming true? What do they converse with other people about most? What are they most inspired by? What are the most consistent goals that they're achieving? And what is it they love learning about? If I look objectively at those answers, I can get an idea of what people are dedicated to. And then I got to ask, how specifically is what they're dedicated to, their highest value, is helping me fulfill mine? And how specifically is mine, what I'm dedicated to, helping them fulfill theirs? If I link those by asking that question over and over again, then I don't need to fix them. I just can appreciate and love them, and I help them get what they want. They help me get what I want. So there's an art of doing that. I train people on that in the breakthrough experience every weekend, and it works if you do it. It can help you in your relationship, your kids' relationship, people at work, employees. It doesn't matter who it is, or if you're a leader, to people. People want to be appreciated for who they are, and who they are revolves around what they value most. So that's a science. It is a reproducible, duplicatable science you can learn and you can apply, and you get the same results.
Beautiful. And are you somebody who thinks about the future much and what the future is going to be like, and 2050, 2060, these kind of times? Or
yeah, I wrote down my posthumous biography of how I want to be perceived 1,000 years from now. And then I wrote down 100 year, I guess you could say, predictions of what the world will be, what's going to happen in the 100 years. And I wrote this 20-something years ago. And 16 of 100 predictions are come true already. So 16 are done. I can't say it was because of some esoteric, mystical gift of some form. It was just probabilities of what I thought would occur. Some of them will probably not occur, but some have already occurred. So I'm pretty pleased with some of those outcomes, but some I don't know if I can even see. I was speculating, and we'll just see what happens. But I'm a believer in instead of waiting to see what the world does, let's go make it happen.
Yeah.
I think Elon Musk is a good example of that. Instead of waiting to see if we're going to make it to Mars, let's go to Mars.
Let's go check it out.
Let's go check it out. Let's take a trip to Mars, man.
I love it. Yeah, because future, I asked this question of some. It's like some people want to live in the now and think about now and don't want to think about like intending or visualizing for the future. But I feel like it happens regardless. I feel like it's a kind of mechanism that happens whether you want to or not.
Well, if you're not in your forebrain, you're in your hindbrain. And if you're not in your forebrain, you're going to let telenomics instead of teleologics run your life. And that'll be trial and error. And you'll be sitting and go, I have to learn from what I didn't or did do in the past. But foresight and planning and mitigating the risks and designing what you want in life and designing a masterful life, that's foresight. Now, that doesn't mean you go out there and constantly live in the fantasy. What you do is you go out there and you create a plan of action and you refine it as you go by asking what worked and what didn't work every day. And you keep living in the now with the action steps that you plan from the futuristic view. That's the closest we get to being present with the future.
And once you have these, so once you have your highest values and you know what they are, you got your top 3 or 4 values. I know that wealth was always for me like 5th, 6th, 7th. It was down low, and within the last year, the last 12 months, I did the values determination recently, and it was my 3rd highest value, and that's what life was showing me. And that's like the first time I'm like, all right, cool. I'm giving more than ever. I'm creating more value than ever. I'm serving more than ever. Feeling more like I'm on my purpose than ever. Once you have your top, is it stuck there, or what can you do about it if you have these?
No, your values can change. You could have cataclysmic events or gradual tweaking events change your values. I didn't have a value on wealth building until I was 28. I had a value on saving money, earning. I had a work ethic, saving and earning to buy things, to buy a surfboard, to buy a baseball, to buy a trip, to go somewhere, clothes, whatever. But I didn't have a value until age 28 when I asked those 9 questions that we went over to actually have my money working for me. Because I snapped and I realized if I keep doing what I'm doing, my life will go by and I'll have a bunch of clutter, but I won't have any money working for me. So I better stop and not let immediate gratification stop you from long-term vision. Warren Buffett says a beautiful quote. Basically, it says that the people that have impatience don't go anywhere. People that have patience make wealth. They're the financial independents. So I changed. I had a shift in values, and I started saving it that day. And I chose to never spend that money. So I basically, until I was financially independent, I still have my financial independence. I still don't spend that. I let it just keep growing. And part of it is for causes that are beyond my life.
And what was the shift there, like internally? How did you think about it previously, and then how do you think about it now?
Well, what really happened that triggered it, there were 2 things. I had a lady that I hired in my office. I was a practicing doctor at the time. And I had this lady I hired as an assistant. And I trained her for 6 weeks, and she was just starting to get productive. And then right about the time she started to get productive, I think, okay, now I can put her into operation. We can get some return on our investment here. She goes off to Las Vegas for the weekend, meets a guy after drinking, gets a little sloshed or whatever, marries the guy, comes back on Monday and said, by the way, I got married and I'm moving to Las Vegas. And I'm like going, give me a break. You got to be kidding. What kind of craziness is that? And she wanted her paycheck then. And there was a part of me that was still in the positive thinking at the time, and I didn't want anybody to be upset with me, so I would just go, okay. So I went and got a paycheck. And that night I bitched to my wife. That lady came in, I trained her and everything else. She just walked away, and I had to pay her. And I thought to myself, this is crazy. I'm minimizing me for the sake of other people, and I'm trying to be Mr. Nice Guy, and I'm holding myself back. And I said, I am prioritizing my money expenditures backwards. So I decided to make a list of all of the things I was spending money on and prioritize it according to what would cause a penalty to me most. And I realized why the wealthy pay themselves first. Because if they don't, entropy takes over all the other cost and unexpected bills, and you never get ahead. And the number one thing you must pay is yourself. And then you got to pay your taxes, and then you got to pay your highest priority bills that are the most important, or the ones that have the most interest debt processes with them. And I structured it, prioritized it, made a commitment on prioritizing it, and I paid myself first. I paid my taxes second. I budgeted my lifestyle, and I paid my bills all by priority. I put my vacation, education, depreciation account in place. I structured and put a structure to my finances, did it electronically where I couldn't screw it up with emotions, because emotions destroy wealth and strategies build it. And then I went out there and focused on serving people. And the electronic structures took care of the rest. And every month my wealth started going up. And I set up the structure of increasing it after meeting with Jim McKinley, who gave me those 9 things we went over. I then basically went in there and said, all right, I'm going to increase my savings 10% every quarter. And that will create a fortune over time. And all I have to do is go serve people and watch the growth. Yeah, and I did that, and it occurred. It worked. I've shown a lot of people that, and it's worked for them too.
It's proven.
So my life changed at that moment when I made a decision that I'm going to master all 7 areas of my life. I'm going to wake up and create original ideas that serve humanity, that's original. I'm going to create an international business that's going to touch millions of lives. We now have students in every country. I'm going to have a financial independence. I'm going to have a global relationship, which I do. I have an amazing girlfriend that owns a major company, one of the biggest companies, and she's just a go-getter. And then socially, I wanted to go and have influence and meet amazing people. Physically, I wanted to be vital. I'm 63 and I'm still got more energy than most people. And I wanted to be inspired and create a spiritual movement that's not a religion, but an inspirational movement that people could transcend religious dogmas by. They can get on with doing something amazing and contribute, and not sit there in these limited animalistic moralities. And so I'm working on this. Keeps me busy. I figure I got enough to keep me busy for a few thousand lives. So.
And do you have strategy around ensuring that each of those areas,
every one of them,
get attention each day?
I work on every one of them. They're all linked in my brain every day, because what I do covers all of them.
So is it a wash, rinse, repeat? It always looks similar, like it's at this time of day this happens, that time of day that happens, so on and so forth? Or?
No. I just, in my situation, my social life and my business and my finances and my spiritual, there's no separation. My family life, my daughter helps me run the company, and she's out teaching today. My other daughter runs the fashion design company, which I'm also involved in, and my son is doing gaming. And so we're all 7 areas are being simultaneously taken care of if I focus on the highest priority action. So I've integrated it all.
And is that something that happens naturally, or you've intended for it to be like that?
No, I purposely integrated it, because I realized that if I ask how specifically is spending time with socializing, helping me network and growing my business, the finances, help me be inspired, how is spending time reading and studying, helping those areas, I've crisscrossed all of them so I don't see them separated. So I'm not juggling a bunch of balls by looking at one ball. I can look at the center and juggle all the balls.
Yeah, beautiful. And in terms of relationships, what is some of the themes, in build? I know relationship building is one of my themes for this year to get really deep on, and that's helped me serve more people. It's helped me deepen in my relationship with myself and those around me, my loved ones, my family, my friends. For you, what are some of the themes that come up with people having either issues or challenges? Is there common themes that come up around relationships, and what do you have to share on that?
Everybody has an animal nature in their amygdala, as I said, that wants pride. And therefore, they believe that whatever they perceive their values to be, although it may not be their authentic values, they're right. And the person that you're in a relationship with is doing the same thing. So you run in with complementary opposite values in some cases, not always the same exact values. It can't be. There's some sort of variation of similars or differences. And then you project your values on them and expect them to live in your values, punish them if they don't, and they're doing the same, and you undermine your relationship until you finally realize that we're not here to change them, we're here to love them. And so that linking exercise I gave you that I mentioned a minute ago that would be helpful to do that, and also the Demartini Method, which I teach in the Breakthrough Experience program, is an essential tool, an absolutely amazing tool on helping dissolve the baggage that accumulates during a normal relationship development, and basically realize that they're committed to the fulfillment of their highest values. They're not committed to you. People have this delusion, okay, now you're going to get on a white dress and you're going to buy a black tuxedo and now you're going to show commitment. That's childish. The only thing a person's committed to is the fulfillment of what they value most. If you help them fulfill their values more than the options, they're not going anywhere. But if you're, I always say that anything you're not willing to do for your mate or with your mate, you better be willing to delegate. Somebody else is going to do it.
I like it. And what are some of the, I guess, keys in that? Is that the main part for you, or is it the other pieces as well with like communication and like
communication, communion and communication is the ability to communicate what you value in terms of what they value. It's a sales process. Whoever you're in a relationship with, they're a customer. If you never forget that, you'll go farther. Your customer's needs have to be met. And if you don't care enough, if you respect the customer and value a customer, you'll go out of your way to make sure you plan, structure, think of how you communicate the value of your product to them. If you don't respect them, you'll project onto them. That undermines the customer. So just know that if you see your children and your spouse as a customer, you'd be surprised how that wakes you up to the real responsibilities you have in a relationship. Like a business, you don't think about it. You would never go out on a customer and said, look, buddy, you need what I have. I know what you need. You don't. Buy my product. Okay, people do that in relationships. It's quite funny.
It is
but
funny.
what's happening is if you go out there and level the playing field where you're not above them or below them, but equal with them, and you go and ask them questions, what is it that you would love to fulfill in your life? What's really most important to you? And then see if your product matches that. If your product matches it, fabulous. It's a pretty good sale, an easy sale. If it doesn't, you got to show the links of how you will help them fulfill that. And if it's way off base and it's not fulfilling it, then you better love them enough to let somebody else take that ride. Because you're going to just torture yourself in that journey, trying to pretend to be somebody you're not. You got to care and respect about the person. And when you meet a match, you'll automatically respect them, and you'll want to treat them with respect to the way you communicate with them. But if you're needing somebody to look up to you like you're a hero, you're going to get somebody that's below you. You're going to talk down to them, and you're going to probably have an affair, and they're going to probably be hurt. And they're going to learn how to value themselves. And if you're sitting there infatuated with somebody and looking up to them, you're probably going to be underdog, wanting to tie them down, and they're going to want to get away and want to find a match. So you got to learn how to get a match and have somebody you respect if you want to have a long-term relationship.
And that's
fair exchange, sustainable fair exchange with equanimity is the secret of it.
Sustainable fair exchange with equanimity. So equanimity, for those who don't know,
it means even-mindedness. It's inequities is being judging. Equanimity is where you see that the seer, the seeing, and the seen are the same. What you see in them is you. You're a reflection of them. You don't look up or down at them. You just look across and say, I see that whatever I see in you that I like or dislike, I have in me equally. Thank you. I love you.
And how does one deepen in that? Is that just
that's where the Demartini Method comes in. The Demartini Method is a science of doing that. And I teach it in the breakthrough experience. And anybody who comes to breakthrough that learns how to do that is going to have a tool that they can help in their relationship dynamics.
Yeah, and I often will do this exact thing. I'm often what's the word? Just holding people in my heart, or being that in the equanimity and the equanimous. And people will say, are you like unaffected, or are you even human? Are you an android or something? I'm like, well, I just can see both sides and all sides of the story at the same time, and I don't have to judge you for that, or I don't have to choose to be upset about that. So I think it is definitely, the more you do it, the more easier it gets, and the more.
Well, it's not that you're an android. You're just transcendent to their emotional reactions, and people want to project onto you their emotional biases. And if you don't match it, then they're going to try to use emotional blackmail to get you to believe what they want to believe, so they can be right. And you have to be able to say thank you. We all have different values and different perceptions, and I appreciate your feedback. I'll consider it. You know, I love Plato in this story he had. Plato basically was being bombarded by the merchants in the city, and they were criticizing him for teaching these young youth abstract things like mathematics and theology and astronomy and stuff. And so they came to him and said, you know, why do you teach these youth these abstract concepts? You need to be practical, man. They need to be able to learn how to survive out there in the hard world out there. Don't talk about abstract things that make them stretch, etc. He was trying to make leaders. These people are just wanting, you know, industrial kind of people. And so Plato said, oh, you are so right. I am so foolish. I can't believe that I didn't see the obvious. Please feel that if I forever don't do what you say, and I for some reason overlook and stop and don't do what you just advised, please feel that I'm unworthy of any more comment. In other words, bug off.
It's almost the answer to how to win any argument.
Yeah.
I've got a couple more things I'd like to just touch on. The name of this podcast is Living Life in the Flow Zone. So let's talk about flow. Do you have any concepts of flow and being in that kind of in the zone or in flow, and what does that mean for you?
Well, I think that many people over the centuries have written about being in the flow, being in the zone, being authentic. There's hundreds of different references. Be self-actualized. They're all different views of the same basic state. Again, it goes back to the same thing: living according to what you value most, being authentic, being inspired from within, because it's your judgments that block the flow, and your objectivity is more even-minded. The word objectivity means even-mindedness. It's another name for equanimity, another name for actualization. But when we're subjectively biased and we make things black and white, this is good and this is bad and this is right and wrong, and what you did hurt me, and then you did it and I'm innocent, and polarizing your mind, you're not in the flow. You're going to be living with friction and resistance constantly because of your own misperception of the magnificence of the universe. The order is already there. There's a hidden order. Few people see it. If you ask the right questions, you get to be awakened to it. When you do, you're in the flow again. It's the quality of your life that is the quality of questions in your life determine it.
What are these right questions that you mentioned?
So if somebody's challenging me or criticizing me or something like that, instead of being reactive and saying, oh, they're stupid and I'm not that way, and pride and stuff, you go, okay, what specific trait, action, inaction is this person displaying or demonstrating that specifically that I most despise or dislike? X, define it. Great. Number two, where and when do I display and demonstrate that same trait or similar trait? And where is it, and when is it, and to who is it to, and who sees me do that? And I go and identify it until it's quantitatively and qualitatively equal. Then go to the moment when they're actually doing it, and in that moment, and from that moment till now, how specifically is that trait, action, inaction that they're doing, that they're displaying or demonstrating, how's it serving me, and how's it benefiting me? Because it's not in the way, it's on the way. You just haven't seen it. So how is it serving you? And if you answer that question enough, where the benefits are equaling the drawbacks, it no longer has a sting. It has nothing there except thank you. Now you're basically back in the game again, and you realize it had nothing to do with them. It's your perception of them. Every weekend in the breakthrough experience, I have people that come in with victim stories. They run their little stories and go to their little therapist. And I just laugh at that. I go, if you want to go to the rapist therapist and do that, that's fine, but I'm here to help you stretch, not shrink. I'm here to help you master your life, not become victim of history. And so I make them ask those questions and confront them and hold them accountable to those questions. And 76 or 77 more of those questions. And when they're done, they're just in grace. And they realize, man, I completely didn't understand how this universe is set up. I'm projecting all my fantasies and putting unrealistic expectations and living in an illusion. Life's supposed to be one-sided, and that's where you block all the flow. You finally understand how the universe is structured. It's quite flowing.
It does. So for you, it's almost like I have this ideas of meditation or mindfulness. So this is kind of your practice of that.
Well, mindful meditation is very valuable if it's truly a mindful meditation and not an escapism. A lot of people do meditation to escape their stresses and get away and set up fantasies that they're going to create world peace and this kind of stuff. This is delusional. But mindful meditation is going in and knocking out the noise of the mind, becoming present and transcending the illusions that you are doing and witness them and not attached to them. And that there's a skill to it. And the work that I do in the breakthrough experience, the Demartini Method, work perfectly and dovetail beautifully with mindfulness. They help each other. So I've been doing meditation since the day I met Paul Bragg. November 18th, 1972 is when I did my first meditation. At least formal meditation.
And what does that practice look like for you? Is it a 10-minute thing, an hour thing? Do you sit there? Do you concentrate on one thing? Like
it varies. I've studied so many different forms of meditation. I use different forms at different times for different purposes. But I could be on a plane, I may meditate. I may realize that I only have 3 hours before I do my next gig, and I've had 2.5 hours sleep, 3 hours sleep. I may go and meditate and just sit in a chair. I may do it for creative visualization about what I want to accomplish. I may do it for to integrate information after studying all night. I have various uses for meditation. I may do it just to see if I can actually help my physiology stay younger. There's lots of purposes of it.
And I like this concept of heartfulness, like bringing everything into the heart. So mindfulness is great, have this idea of mind, but bringing the heart into it as well. And when I think of this concept of heartfulness, I don't know if I made it up or if it came from somewhere, but it brings everything into that center where everything is balanced, and the perspective becomes balanced, and it becomes loving, and becomes accepting and opening and receptive.
True mindfulness is heartfulness.
The same thing.
A true objective equanimous mind opens the heart.
Yeah,
they're one and the same.
It's a natural thing.
The heart, when they know about the enteric brain, which deals with emotional impulses and instincts, the heart brain, which deals with inspiration, and the other brain, which deals with intuition, which is trying to take you out of the emotions into the heart. All three of them are available.
Can you name those again? Just say them.
The enteric brain, the gut brain, is basically impulses and instincts. It's there if all of a sudden a predator comes at us or something challenges it, wakes up our instincts. And if a prey comes along, we want to eat. That's our impulses. That's the more primitive one. Then you got the brain, where the brain is basically attempting to rationally think things out and trying to bring its brain into balance. And then the second it's balanced and it's neutralized the impulses and instincts of the amygdala, the heart opens up, and the heart is there to let you know you're now seeing things as they are, not as you've fantasized and projected.
Excellent. And that's actually just touched on a decision-making process that I like to utilize for myself. I find a lot of people can have this kind of find it hard to make decisions, or they don't have a process of decision-making. And that's one way that I make my decisions is I ask myself, does this make sense to me like logically? Well,
if it inspires you and opens the heart, it's not even a decision. It's an action of inspiration. And the word decision comes from decide, and decide is the same as homicide, insecticide, genocide, patricide, matricide, infanticide. It's about bringing death to an option. That's what decide means. So the lower self decides, the higher self acts out of wisdom.
And
state.
And that creating that state is what you just said, aligning your life and your actions with your highest values, I guess.
That's the key. That reason I wrote the book, The Values Factor, is to make sure that people knew that that's the cornerstone of it all. Being basically congruent with that highest value.
And that's will help you keep focused, I imagine, too, which was one of my final questions.
You can't not be focused. Your innermost dominant thought, your innermost dominant vision is an expression of your highest value.
Say that again one time.
Your innermost dominant thought and your innermost dominant vision and your innermost dominant message for the world is an expression of your highest value.
And then that will
and those with a mission have a message and a vision. They're all together.
Excellent. So I've got this vision of mindfulness. I see a more mindful world and a more heartful world, and more people who come to this world knowing why they came to the world in general, and are aligned with that, are more taking more inspired action and are actually practicing regular mindfulness, regular heartfulness. So for someone who has that vision, for myself, what would you recommend in order to actually bring it about with more expediently and more speedily and more effectively and more impactfully?
Well, think about this. If you were to go through a day and you have a list of high priority actions you get done, and you get them done by priority, what do you feel like at the end of the day?
Like I just want to keep going. Like I don't want to sleep.
You got more energy. You feel more fulfilled. Your self-worth is up. You achieve. And what happens if you don't have an agenda and just weird stuff fills your day because you didn't fill it with things that are important?
Sleepy.
Where'd the day go? What you got it. Okay, so that's a life. Now put that not just in a day or a week or a month or a year or a decade or a generation. Put it in a whole life. The same principle. So if you're not master planning your life and orchestrating what you want in life, somebody else is going to do it. Any area of your life you don't empower, somebody's going to overpower. So it's up to you, because nobody's going to get up in the morning and dedicate their life to your fulfillment but you. So if you're not sitting there and planning out the day and filling it with the highest priorities and decide this is what I'm going to use my time for today, then you can expect entropy and everybody else's projected expectation to nail you with unexpecteds. And at the end of the day, you're going to depreciate instead of appreciate.
And what's the idea of entropy and syntropy? Like, what's the difference?
Well, entropy is a tendency to go from order to disorder, and negentropy, or syntropy, as Fantopy says, is the tendency for disorder to order. So if we take and organize our lives, we bring order to the world. If not, entropy brings disorder to our lives.
And that sort of, I got a whole mind blow there of syntropy and creating, you know, these ideas. I know there's like a gifting economy kind of movement happening. Do you know anything about that?
Well, you mean trying to go and contribute to the world on the outside? Well, there's nothing wrong with the contribution, but I don't like to use the word gift and contribution and charity. I think those are mislabeled. I'm not interested in a lot of the philanthropy is a compensation for extracting surplus labor value out of other people through the delegation process. It's wiser to go and keep a fair exchange all along the journey. Because if you've got any narcissism, you'll eventually have to come back with altruism. If you've had any altruism, you'll have to go back with narcissism. People that have been sacrificing and minimizing themselves for others end up on Social Security with welfare to try to get other people to take care of them narcissistically. And people that go and achieve greatness like that, they end up philanthropic. I say do them both at the same time and maintain fair exchange along the way. That's where self-mastery lives.
And is that something that you do work with many philanthropists in your work? And is that a message?
Yeah, I've come across many of them. Many of them are deluded into thinking that they're doing a giving and that they're doing it some altruistically, but no human being will ever move a muscle without also a motive inside. Some of them are just unconscious. I don't like to hide the motive. I like to be upfront about my motives and say, I want to do something that's a win-win. I'm not interested in doing something for you at my expense. I'm not interested in doing something for me at your expense. I'm interested in finding a way where we both getting what we want. We both have a fair transaction that's sustainable, so we'll continue to do it.
Yeah. And is that, I guess.
And don't rob people. It's not wise to rob people of dignity, accountability, responsibility, and productivity. Don't rescue people. Rescuing desperation out of so-called wounds of your own past with this so-called compassion isn't the answer. It's actually holding people accountable to do something amazing with their life and contribute enough seeds of opportunity, but not enough to make them dependent.
Can you give us an example of what that looks like?
Well, if you give somebody money and they eat with it, and they don't have any education or any accountabilities with it, they'll probably go multiply and become dependent on you. But if you make them go and educate themselves and have accountabilities and have to pay it forward or pay some of it back, then they have some accountabilities. They're probably going to do something that contributes. It's the science of making sure that you create fair exchange with people.
Yeah, beautiful. So excellent. I'm going to ask you one more thing about your year. I guess, like last year, what was the most inspirational thing that happened to you, and what came of it?
Well, last year, I mean, I got to go to a new country. I set out a goal when I was 17 years old to step foot in every country on the face of the earth. And last year, I got another 5 countries that I got to go and speak at. Well, I got to go to Kuwait. I'm getting ready to go to Lithuania. I went to Romania. I went to Vietnam. I went to South, what do you call it? Tel Aviv. So these are places where I hadn't spoken yet, and I got to do it, and I get to tick off another places where I get to go.
Do you have translators there who relay?
Yeah, every country that is not English, I do translators. So I'm just ticking off. I've spoken over 2,000 cities, and I'm just ticking off every city I get that's new and every country I get that's new, and I'm just working on those objectives, and I'm making progress on it. I'm also launching new programs and upgrading new programs constantly, and trying to learn and constantly read and stuff. And so I got to meet some amazing people last year and got to go to amazing places. So I have a blessed life, I think. To me, I mean, some people look at my life and go, man, I wouldn't want that. That's intense. But I love it.
So your place is in Denver, or that's just where you are now? That's where you have
right now. No, I don't. I live on a ship. I live on the ship called the World, which is a condominium ship with about 100 people, and we travel around the world and, kind of pioneers in there. I've been down there for 16 and a half years.
And how many times do you sleep there?
I'm not that often. I'm there when I'm in that area. I'll get on the ship. But I mainly just travel. I'm full-time. I made a dedication to travel the world and teach. So I go city to city, and I'm living in nice, beautiful places and speaking every day.
Nice work. I love it. I wanted to thank you for your time, and definitely do it again sometime.
Thank you. Appreciate the great questions and the dedication and the commitment that is expressed in your face and your mannerisms and everything else. It shows that you really care about making a difference in people's lives. So thank you for letting me help other people. I appreciate it.
Beautiful. And is there any kind of, I know you're working on this book, it's a textbook. Is that something that you're going to be releasing, or is there kind of a book that you would recommend everyone gets if they want to know about your work? Is it the
No, this is a textbook for advanced students on cosmology. And later, after I pass on, all those books will probably be available. Maybe before I pass, I'll put all those volumes together, and then people can take a peek at them. But they're not the mass populace out there wouldn't be interested in this book. Only people that are interested in this field would be interested in this book. But I have plenty of students out there around the world that would be loving this. So they're looking forward. They're chomping at the bit, waiting for this program. I'm going to launch it in a program very soon, and it'll be a great 5 days. We're just going to spend 5 solid days exploring the universe.
Excellent, excellent. So I know that the breakthrough is coming up. One in Melbourne. You said Sydney and Brisbane, was it? Yeah.
If anybody's interested in what I'm up to do, come to the Breakthrough Experience. The Breakthrough Experience is 2 solid days. It's 24 hours with me. We do it's on the weekend. It's coming up on the 3rd and 4th of February in Melbourne. You can go on my website, drdemartini.com, and look up on it under events. Go to drdemartini.com, events on the far left side of the menus there. Hit events, go down. You'll see Melbourne. I'm doing the Breakthrough Experience. It's life-changing. It's mind-expanding. It's heart-opening. I've been doing it 1,122 times. 90,000 people have attended at least. And it's your trajectory of your life about to change if you join me for it. I promise you. If you got anything out of today, you'll get something out of that. I promise.
I can attest to that. My life definitely went upwards and onwards ever since the first one I did in Brisbane with you. And actually, on that, you do a grief process, which I was lucky enough to join you on stage to do. Do you want to just quickly give a rundown of that?
I'm working on another book on that, and it's a grief process I've done since the 80s. That I've taken probably 3,500 people through. I have 100% track record with it. It's an absolute gem. We're about to, we worked with it at the Christchurch earthquake. We did it in the Ishtamaki tsunami. We did it in the earthquake in Japan recently. China earthquake asked us to come. Getting ready to do something in Sri Lanka on the conflicts and the killings there for the grief. And it's a science, and it works, and it takes less than about 1.5 hours, no more than 3, but 2 hours for sure, dissolving grief. And it shatters people's thinking about how this is done. But I money back guarantee the grief process. If you're having grief over any form of loss, make it to the Breakthrough Experience. You'll see it live and you'll know how to do it. And it's a gem. I've been doing it a long time. For 30 years, I got a track record with it.
Absolutely awesome. And finally, if you get to the end of your life and all of everything that you shared had disappeared magically, it's just gone, what would you want to leave people with?
The thing that I would say is that the only thing that Howard Hughes taught me when I was 14 years old, they can take away your loved ones, they can take away your possessions, they can take away lots of things, but they can never take away your love and wisdom. So gain the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom and dedicate your life to doing something you love wisely.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dr. John Demartini.
Thank you.
And until next time, guys, keep the flow growing and the growth flowing.